There's a brief moment in Sugartime that completely took me by surprise, and it's actually a little unnerving, but it was pretty great. This is a really good episode of Postcards from Buster, as most of them are. It's the 33rd episode of the first season, and it takes place in Vermont. And it's Sugartime because it's the time when people start to gather all of the sap from the trees, and we get to see a little bit of this. And I will say this episode will make you hungry for multiple reasons, but particularly that. And there's an overarching narrative of Buster trying to find his mother the perfect present for Mother's Day, and I love the message that came with that, but I'll talk about it in a bit with a spoiler warning. But he's trying to find all of these different things, and in true Buster style, he keeps coming up with food gifts. And obviously, there's the maple aspect, and he visits this dairy farm, and we get to see these cows, and they look wonderful. Apparently, this farm has over 200 cows, which I imagine is a pretty incredible upkeep. But we had some really great footage of the cows, and he thinks to get his mother a cheese wheel. And I kind of like that he's making her basically a care package of local delicacies or food that's made from where he's visiting. And I think that that's such a lovely idea. Whether or not things go according to plan, I won't say just now. But we get to meet some great characters. One of the families he eats with on a Friday evening observes Shabbat. And I only knew about that because it featured in a previous episode, and Buster actually mentioned this. So it doesn't go into too much detail about what that is, because it was a previous episode went into a lot of detail about it, which on the one hand I think that's great. I love the fact that there's that continuity. Buster's mentioning this, he's telling the viewer, hey, in a previous episode you can learn about this. But I think maybe a tiny bit more information about what it was for this episode would have been useful, because obviously not everybody who sees this episode is going to have seen every episode. But other than that, I thought it was really well done and surprising. It was actually intense. So everything I'm going to say now are spoiler warnings. One is something that happens to Buster's Mother's Day idea, and the other is I'll tell you the other one actually, because it's not really a spoiler. At least it doesn't spoil the narrative, but Buster gets his photograph taken with the family. It's a group picture, and we get to see it. We get to see the live action photograph with Buster in it. And this is the first time in, 33 episodes, where live action and animation has blended together in one shot. We've seen, the scenery imagined in live action, in animation style with Buster in it, but never have we seen animated Buster in a live action scene or a live action still, and it just completely threw me. I wasn't expecting it, and I rather liked it. It was pretty cool. Whereas I mentioned in a previous episode, we got to see kind of the side profile or the back profile of a human character who was talking with Mora's voice. So they could have done an animation in that live action, but they didn't. So it was an interesting choice here, but it worked well. So I guess a spoiler from now, I'm going to discuss what happened to his Mother's Day idea and ultimately what he ended up giving her. So spoilers, I did not expect the dog to eat the gift. It was so dramatic. Normally Postcards from Buster episodes are not quite as shocking or dramatic as that. Poor Buster was clearly heartbroken, but ultimately he made something for his mother. And I love that it's saying you don't need to buy expensive gifts. Yes, it's lovely if you're going to give her a care package from where you're visiting. That's such a wonderful idea. But obviously not everybody has the means of doing that, and you don't need to. You can make something, and parents will pretend that that's what they prefer. I mean, let's face it. I think his father mentioned the macaroni necklace Buster made his mother one year, presumably when he was a little bit younger. And while most parents will pretend to be thrilled to buy that macaroni necklace, I think deep down they're wishing they had, something from Tiffany's or something. Not that I think any child should get their parents something as expensive as a Tiffany's necklace. But, homemade things, it's the thought that counts. And I like that it was saying that, and saying that you don't need to get her all this expensive stuff. It's the thought that counts. And the time and effort into making something is often worth more than going to the shop, grabbing something and paying for it. Definitely a great episode with some great messages, a few surprising moments that I wasn't expecting, and a very delicious episode as well. Sugartime is pretty great.